Kira Vaxlori stood at the viewport of Harmony Point Station, her blue skin reflecting the starlight. She watched the ships coming and going, each filled with beings who feared her kind. Being the only Zentarian in the galaxy was a lonely existence. Security Chief Vaxlori, please report to Level 4, Section C, a voice called over the station's communication system. Kira sighed and turned away from the view. Her heavy boots made little sound as she walked through the corridor. Years of training had taught her to move quietly despite her dense muscle structure. At 2 meters tall with shoulders twice as broad as most humanoid species, she couldn't help but stand out. The other station residents moved aside as she passed. Some nodded respectfully, but most averted their eyes. After 5 years serving on Harmony Point, she was used to it. Centaurians were built to survive on a world that would kill most sentient beings in minutes. High gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and predators that could tear through metal. All these things had shaped her species, or at least, they had shaped her. As far as she knew, she was the last one. The evacuation ships had saved only a handful when the stellar event destroyed her homeworld 20 years ago. And one by one, the others had died, unable to adapt to the gentle environments of the Galactic Confederacy. "There's been a complaint about the new Morillian delegate," said Officer Colin Webb as Kira entered the security office. His pink skin and delicate features marked him as a Teslian, evolved on a world of perpetual twilight and gentle breezes. "What kind of complaint?" Kira asked, keeping her voice soft. She had learned early that her natural volume frightened others. "He says someone stole his ceremonial headdress. Probably just misplaced it, but you know how Morillians are about their feathers." Kira nodded. "I'll speak with him." As she walked through the diplomatic wing, she noticed the usual reactions. 2 Vosgian ambassadors huddled closer together, their translucent skin pulsing with alarm colors. A Grendalian merchant clutched his trading case tighter. A group of Teslian children on a cultural exchange tour gasped and pointed. "Look, it's the Deathworlder," one whispered loudly. "My father says she can break bones just by touching them," another replied. Kira pretended not to hear. Children were the same across all species, curious and sometimes cruel without meaning to be. The Morillians' quarters were marked with the elaborate doorway decorations typical of their species. Kira announced herself and waited for permission to enter. "Ah, Security Chief," Ambassador Laurel chirped, his voice musical in the way of all Morillians. His bright plumage was displayed in distress patterns. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "I understand your headdress is missing," Kira said. Yes. The green gold one with the sacred stones. It must be found before the reception tonight, or I cannot attend, and relations between our worlds will suffer terribly." The ambassador fluttered his wing arms anxiously. Kira nodded seriously, though she suspected the diplomatic consequences were exaggerated. "When did you last see it?" As the ambassador described the headdress and its last known location, Kira's attention was drawn to a slight movement near the ventilation shaft. With reflexes honed on a world where hesitation meant death, she moved swiftly to the wall and reached into the narrow opening. She pulled out a small furry creature clutching a glittering object in its 6 paws. "A station pest," she explained, gently extracting the headdress from the creature. "They're attracted to shiny things." The ambassador trilled with relief. "Remarkable. Your species' reflexes are truly extraordinary." Kira handed over the headdress and tucked the small creature into a pocket. She would release it in the station's garden level later. "Just doing my job," she said, the phrase she used whenever her abilities drew attention. Later, as she returned to her quarters, Kira looked again at the stars. Somewhere out there was Zentaria, now just a cloud of cosmic dust. She was the last reminder that such a harsh world had ever produced life intelligent enough to reach the stars. The burden of being unique was heavy. No one else could understand what it meant to be feared simply for existing, to be seen as a curiosity, a potential threat, or a useful tool, but rarely as a person. Kira touched the blue skin of her arm, feeling the natural armor beneath. She had never met anyone who could understand what it meant to be a Deathworlder. And she never would. Or so she believed. The diplomatic reception was in full swing. Harmony Point's grand hall glittered with the finest clothing and jewelry from 100 worlds. Kira stood at her post near the main entrance, scanning the crowd for any signs of trouble. "All quiet so far," said Officer Webb through her earpiece. "Let's hope it stays that way," Kira replied. She had attended enough of these events to know that mixing different species, cultural protocols, and alcoholic substances often led to problems. Ambassador Laurel fluttered by, his recovered headdress gleaming under the lights. He nodded gratefully to Kira before joining a group of delegates. Near the refreshment table, Kira noticed a woman she hadn't seen before. She wore the simple blue uniform of the Earth delegation, the newest members of the Galactic Confederacy. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 5 years ago, and they were still a curiosity to most species. This human was shorter than Kira, but taller than most of the other species present. Her skin was a warm brown, and her black hair was pulled back in a neat style. She seemed to be listening politely to a Vosian ambassador whose translucent skin was cycling through formal greeting colors. Kira's attention was pulled away by the arrival of the Dravian delegates. Their ceremonial armor always set security officers on edge, though the weapons were purely decorative. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the station. The lights flickered. Kira's hand went to her communicator. "Report," she demanded. "Structural failure in Section 8, adjacent to the reception hall," came the urgent reply. "Possible hull breach." The rumble became a roar. The far wall of the reception hall buckled inward. Warning sirens wailed as emergency containment procedures activated. "Evacuate," Kira shouted, her voice cutting through the rising panic. "Move toward the emergency exits in an orderly." A terrible screech of tearing metal interrupted her. A section of the wall gave way completely. Air began rushing toward the breach, pulling everything toward it. The station's emergency force fields flickered but failed to fully activate. The breach was too sudden, too catastrophic. Kira reacted instantly. Unlike the others, she could survive brief exposure to vacuum. Her Zentarian physiology included reinforced lungs that could lock air inside and a circulatory system that could temporarily function without oxygen. She pushed against the outrushing air, moving toward the breach rather than away from it. Through the chaos, she saw several delegates being pulled toward the gaping hole. Their lighter bodies were no match for the suction. Kira grabbed a support beam with one hand and reached for a Teslian diplomat with the other. She pulled him to safety, anchoring him to the beam. "Hold on," she shouted, though the roar of escaping air almost drowned her words. Through the crowd, she saw a Morillian child separated from the others, feathers ruffling wildly as the young one slid toward the breach. Kira couldn't reach the child from her position. Then, amazingly, someone else moved against the flow. The human woman from the Earth delegation was fighting her way toward the child. Her movements were determined, powerful. She shouldn't have been able to function in the rapidly decompressing room, yet she was. The human reached the Morillian child, grabbed a fixture on the wall, and held the child securely. Their position was precarious, directly in the path of the strongest airflow. Kira stared in disbelief. No species except Zentarians could function in such conditions. Even with the room not fully decompressed, most beings would be unconscious or disabled by now. The backup emergency systems finally engage. Metallic shutters slammed down over the breach. The outrushing air slowed and stopped. Emergency atmospheric generators hummed to life, restoring breathable conditions. Medical teams rushed in. Kira moved quickly to where the human woman was now gently setting the Morillian child down. "You shouldn't have been able to do that," Kira said, her voice rough from the strain on her lungs. The woman looked up, her brown eyes meeting Kira's solid black ones. "Humans are pretty tough," she said with a small smile, seemingly unaffected by the near vacuum they had just experienced. "I'm Ella Martinez, Earth Diplomatic Corps." "Kira Vax Lori," Station security. Kira studied the human with new interest. No other species I've met could function in those conditions. Well, Ella said, brushing dust from her uniform, maybe we should talk sometime. I think we might have more in common than you realize. Around them, the medical teams were treating those with decompression injuries. Kira noticed that neither she nor Ella needed assistance. For the first time in years, Kira felt something unexpected. Recognition. The day after the accident, Kira found herself outside the temporary quarters assigned to the Earth delegation. She had checked the duty roster, ensuring she would be off shift when she made this visit. This wasn't official business. She hesitated before pressing the door chime. In 5 years on Harmony Point, she had never sought out anyone for personal reasons. The door slid open to reveal Ella Martinez. She wore casual clothing now, a simple shirt and pants in Earth style. I wondered if you'd come, Ella said with a smile. Please, come in. Kira ducked slightly to enter the standard height doorway. The quarters were small but comfortable, decorated with a few items that must have come from Earth. Colorful woven fabric on the wall, a small plant with red flowers, and several paper books. I have questions, Kira said, standing awkwardly in the center of the room. I bet you do. Ella gestured to a chair. Sit, if you'd like. Though I'm not sure if that chair will hold your weight. Kira tested it carefully before sitting. It's reinforced. Station management learned after I broke 3 chairs my first week here. Ella laughed. We have the same problem on our ships. Furniture made for lighter species just doesn't hold up. There was a moment of silence. Kira didn't know where to begin. You're wondering how I could function during the decompression, Ella said finally. Kira nodded. Only Zentarians can do that. Or could, when there were more of us. Humans developed on Earth, a world that most galactic species would consider extremely hostile. Ella poured 2 drinks from a container on her table. She handed one to Kira. This is coffee. A human drink. Strong, but I think you can handle it. Kira sniffed the dark liquid before taking a sip. It was bitter but pleasant. Earth is classified as a Class 9 death world. Ella continued. High gravity, variable atmosphere, extreme temperature ranges, high background radiation, aggressive biology. We evolved to survive there. Like Centaria, Kira said quietly. Very similar from what I've read about your world. Ella sat across from Kira. The difference is, when humans developed faster than light travel and joined the Confederacy, we didn't advertise our death world origins. After seeing how you're treated, I understand why our leaders made that decision. How did you manage that? There are tests, protocols. Ella smiled. We're good at adaptive thinking. Found ways around the tests, presented our world as more gentle than it is. Most humans working in space take medications to appear more like the galactic norm. Muscle relaxants, metabolism controllers. I wasn't taking mine yesterday because they interfere with diplomatic reception tracks. You hide your nature, Kira said, surprised. Why? Look at how they treat you, Ella replied, her expression serious now. The fear, the isolation. Earth is new to the galactic community. We wanted to integrate first, reveal our true nature gradually. Kira leaned forward. But you're telling me. Because you deserve to know you're not alone. Ella's voice was soft. Do you know how many humans there are in the Confederacy now? Kira shook her head. Over 50,000, spread across 200 stations and outposts. And back on Earth, 8 billion. The number stunned Kira. 8 billion Deathworlders. Earth is harsh, but we learned to thrive there. We built civilizations, technologies. We nearly destroyed ourselves a few times too. Ella took a drink of her coffee. That's the problem with species from harsh worlds. The same drive that helps us survive can make us dangerous. Is that why you hide? You're afraid they'll see you as threats. Partly. Ella set down her cup. The Confederacy has protocols for dealing with potentially destabilizing species. We've seen how they treat you. The last Zentarian. Kept isolated. used for security work. I'm not the only one anymore, Kira said, the realization still new and strange. No, you're not. Ella's smile returned. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other. Kira felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Tell me about Earth. Over the next few weeks, Kira and Ella spent much of their free time together. Today, they sat in the station's garden level, a space designed to remind different species of their homeworlds. Most found it comforting. Kira had always found it strange, too soft, too safe. So you don't actually need to breathe every few seconds? Kira asked, watching Ella demonstrate how long she could hold her breath. Ella finally exhaled and took a deep breath. 4 minutes, 17 seconds. Not bad. My brother can do over 5 minutes. Most humans can hold their breath for at least a minute or two. It helped us hunt in water on Earth. Zentarians can go about 12 minutes, Kira said. But we don't swim. Zentaria had few large bodies of water, and those that existed were highly acidic. Earth is mostly water, Ella said. We call it the blue planet. They had been sharing these details, the small and large differences between their worlds and bodies. Kira had learned that humans couldn't match Zentarian strength or dense bone structure, but their endurance was remarkable. Humans could run for hours, even days. They could survive extreme temperature changes that would kill most species. Their bodies could recover from injuries that would be fatal to others. I still don't understand why you hide it, Kira said, lowering her voice though no one was near. Your abilities could earn humans' respect. Or fear. Ella plucked a leaf from a nearby plant and twirled it between her fingers. Humans learned the hard way that being different often leads to conflict. In our history, even slight differences between human groups led to discrimination and violence. When we reached the stars and found most species had evolved on gentle worlds, our leaders decided it was safer to blend in. But you told me. Ella smiled. You're different. You understand. A comfortable silence fell between them. Kira realized how strange this was, to sit with someone and not feel the need to make herself smaller, to modulate her voice, to move carefully. I remember very little about Zentarian culture, Kira said suddenly. I was young when we evacuated, but we had a tradition of sharing meals as a sign of trust. Would you share a meal from your world with me? Ella's face brightened. I'd love that. I have some Earth foods in my quarters. Not the synthetic stuff from the station replicators. Real food brought on our last supply ship. That evening, Kira entered Ella's quarters to find a small table set with various items she didn't recognize. The smells were strong and complex. I hope your stomach is as tough as the rest of you, Ella joked. I've chosen foods that showcase different Earth cuisines. Kira tried each item carefully. There was bread with a yellow, creamy spread that Ella called butter, strips of preserved meat called bacon, small red fruits called strawberries that burst with sweet juice, a brown square called chocolate that melted on her tongue. These flavors are intense, Kira said. Most galactic cuisine is bland by comparison. Species from gentle worlds prefer gentle tastes, Ella explained. Deathworlders like us developed stronger senses to detect danger. That means we also enjoy stronger flavors. As they ate, Ella shared stories of Earth, its diverse landscapes, thousands of cultures, and long history. In return, Kira tried to recall what she could of Zentaria, the rust-colored sky, the massive predators, the underground cities her people had built to escape the surface storms. I wish I remembered more, Kira said, feeling the familiar ache of her lost world. Maybe someday you'll find others who remember, Ella said gently. There are no others. The evacuation ships. Were there really only evacuation ships? Ella interrupted. That's what they told you. But is that what really happened? Kira stared at her. What do you mean? I've been doing some research in the Confederacy archives, Ella said, her voice dropping to a whisper. And I found something about Centauria that doesn't match the official story. Kira stared at the data display in Ella's quarters. Her hands were shaking slightly, something that had never happened before, not even during the most dangerous situations. "This can't be right," she said, her voice barely audible. Ella stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I double-checked everything. This is from the secure Confederacy archives. I accessed it using diplomatic credentials. On the screen were star charts, planetary scans, and official reports, all about Centauria. According to the data, Centauria had not been destroyed by a stellar event 20 years ago. The planet still existed, though it was listed as quarantine zone. Extreme biological hazard. They told us it was gone," Kira whispered. "That the evacuation ships saved all they could." Ella pointed to another section of the report. "Look at this genetic analysis. It shows similarities between Centauran and human DNA structures. Not identical, but parallel development patterns. Both evolved in high-gravity, high-radiation environments with similar atmospheric compositions." Kira's mind was still stuck on the first revelation. My planet exists. My people might still be there. "There's more," Ella said, pulling up another file. "I found references to something called the Deathworld Containment Protocol. It was enacted 50 years ago, when the Confederacy first encountered Centaurians. They classified your species as potentially destabilizing to galactic peace. The new document showed various assessments of Centaurian physiology, psychology, and technological development. Notes in the margins use words like concerning, aggressive potential, and require monitoring. They feared us," Kira said, the realization washing over her. "Just like they would fear humans if they knew our true nature," Ella replied. "Look at this section about Earth." She opened a newer file labeled Sol 3 Assessment. Earth was designated as a Class 9 death world, and humans were described as highly adaptable with concerning expansion tendencies. The report recommended careful integration with physiological monitoring. "They're watching us too," Ella said. "The difference is, we know we're being watched." Kira sank into a chair, trying to process everything. "So the evacuation, the story about Centauria's destruction. A cover story," Ella finished. "My guess is they evacuated a small number of your people as a test group, to see how Deathworlders would integrate into the wider galactic community. And the rest of my people, still on Centauria, possibly believing they're alone in the universe." The thought made Kira's chest tight. Her entire life had been built around being the last of her kind, the sole survivor of a dead world. Now that foundation was crumbling. "There's something else you need to see," Ella said, bringing up one last file. "These are genetic comparisons between Centaurians and humans, alongside ancient DNA samples found on both our worlds." The display showed complex patterns that even Kira, with no scientific training, could see were remarkably similar. "Both our worlds show evidence of the same ancient genetic markers," Ella explained. "DNA that doesn't quite match the evolutionary pattern of our planets." "What does that mean?" "It means both our species might have been seeded on our respective worlds long ago by some earlier spacefaring civilization. We might be distant cousins, Kira." Kira looked up at Ella, seeing the human's features in a new light. Different, yet connected by the harsh crucible of Deathworld evolution, and possibly by something more. "Why would someone seed harsh worlds with similar life?" Kira asked. "I don't know," Ella admitted. "An experiment, a backup plan. Whatever the reason, it links us, and it might explain why certain factions in the Confederacy are so nervous about both our species." Kira stood suddenly, her mind made up. "I need to know if my people are still alive. If Centauria still exists." "That won't be easy," Ella cautioned. "The planet is under strict quarantine. No ships are allowed near it." "I spent my life thinking I was alone," Kira said firmly. "If there's even a chance I'm not, I have to find out." Ella nodded, her expression serious but determined. "Then we'll find out together. But we'll need help. From who? We can't trust the Confederacy officials. No, Ella agreed. But I know someone who might be sympathetic to our cause. His name is Dr. Leo Garcia. He's a human geneticist who's been studying both our species in secret, and he has access to resources we'll need. Dr. Leo Garcia's lab was hidden in a rarely used section of Harmony Point's science wing. The door looked like a storage closet, unmarked except for a small numerical code. Ella entered the code, and the door slid open. Inside was a space that looked nothing like a closet. Complex equipment lined the walls. Screens displayed data that Kira couldn't understand. In the center stood a man with gray hair and dark skin, looking into a microscope. "Leo," Ella said, "we're here." The man looked up. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Kira. "So this is your Zentarian friend," he said, walking forward with his hand extended. "I'm Leo Garcia." Kira took his hand carefully, aware of her strength. "Kira Vaxlori. I've been hoping to meet you for a long time," Dr. Garcia said. "But the circumstances were never right." Ella closed the door behind them. Leo has been studying Deathworlder biology for years. He's one of the few humans in the Confederacy who hasn't been hiding his research. "Not hiding," Dr. Garcia corrected, "just being selective about who sees it. Please, sit." He gestured to chairs that were clearly built for larger, heavier bodies than most species had. Kira sat comfortably for once. "Ella has shared her discoveries with me," Dr. Garcia said, "about Zentaria still existing and the genetic connections between our species. Can you help us find out if my people are still alive?" Kira asked directly. "Possibly," Dr. Garcia said. "But you need to understand how dangerous this is. The Confederacy has strict protocols for dealing with what they call destabilizing influences. Both our species qualify." He brought up an image on the main screen, a document stamped with official Confederacy seals. "This is from a closed council meeting 8 standard months ago," he explained. "They're discussing containment strategies for Earth, similar to those used on Zentaria." Kira read the document with growing anger. It outlined plans to limit human expansion, manipulate their economic development, and possibly implement a quarantine like the one on Zentaria if humans showed too much aggressive potential. "They see us as threats," she said. "They fear what they don't understand," Dr. Garcia said. "Species from gentle worlds can't comprehend the drive that Deathworlders develop. Our need to survive, to push boundaries, to overcome challenges. To them, it looks like aggression." "How do we find out about Zentaria?" Ella asked, bringing them back to their purpose. Dr. Garcia walked to another console. "I've been monitoring Confederacy quarantine enforcement patterns. Every 30 days, they send an automated probe to check the containment field around Zentaria. The next one launches in 2 days from the military section of this station." "Can we intercept it?" Kira asked. "Better," Dr. Garcia said with a small smile. "We can replace it." He pressed a button, and a wall panel slid open to reveal what looked like an exact copy of a standard Confederacy probe. "I've been building this for months," he explained. "It has all the right identification codes, but it's programmed to send data back to us, not to Confederacy headquarters." "Won't they notice the real probe is missing?" Ella asked. "Not if we're careful. The launch is automated. We need to access the control system and redirect it to take our probe instead of the real one." Kira looked at the device with hope and doubt mixing in her mind. "Even if this works, what will it tell us?" "It can scan for life signs, technology, settlements," Dr. Garcia said. "If your people are still there, we'll know." "And then what?" Kira asked. "If they are alive, how does that help them? Or me?" Ella put her hand on Kira's arm, a gesture that would have been impossible for most species due to Kira's dense muscle structure, but Ella's Deathworlder strength made it natural. "One step at a time," she said. "First, we learn the truth." Dr. Garcia nodded. "The truth is always the first step, but I should warn you both. There's someone else on this station who's been asking questions about Zentaria." "Who?" Kira asked, instantly alert. Commander Brexel, from Confederacy Central Intelligence, Dr. Garcia said, his face grave. He arrived 3 days ago, and he's been reviewing all files related to you, Kira, and to the quarantine zone. Why now? Ella wondered. I don't know, Dr. Garcia admitted, but his timing concerns me. If he discovers what we're planning, then we need to move quickly, Kira said, standing up. 2 days until the probe launch. Dr. Garcia nodded. I'll handle the programming. Ella, you'll need to get access to the launch controls. What about me? Kira asked. You need to keep doing your job, Ella said. Act normal. If Brexel is watching you, any change in routine will alert him. Kira didn't like the idea of waiting while others acted, but she understood the logic. 2 days, she said. And then I'll know if I'm truly the last Centurion, or if my people are still out there, thinking they're alone in the universe. The next day dragged by for Kira. She patrolled her usual routes, filed her usual reports, and tried to appear as she always did, professional, distant, focused on her duties. But inside, her mind raced with questions about Centauria, and what Dr. Garcia's probe might discover. Security Chief Vaxlori, a voice called as she finished her patrol of the diplomatic wing. Kira turned to see a tall, thin alien with pale gold skin. She recognized the species, a Lydian, from a low-gravity world, but not the individual. I am Commander Brexel, he said, his voice musical in the way all Lydians spoke. Confederacy Central Intelligence. Do you have a moment to speak? Kira felt her heart beat faster but kept her face expressionless. Of course, Commander. Walk with me, he said, gesturing toward the observation deck. They walked in silence until they reached the large windows that looked out into space. Stars glittered against the blackness, and below them the blue-green curve of the planet that Harmony Point orbited was visible. You've served on this station for 5 years, Brexel said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Commander. An exemplary record. No complaints. Excellent performance reviews. He turned his large, pupil-less eyes toward her. The last Centurion in the galaxy, serving the Confederacy with distinction. Kira said nothing, waiting. Merely an observation. Brexel's face was impossible to read. Earth is new to the Confederacy. Humans are still adapting to our ways. Ella, Diplomat Martinez, has been helping me understand human culture, Kira said. A cultural exchange. How beneficial. Brexel turned back to the window. Have you ever wondered why you are the only Centurion to survive the evacuation? Why even those who escaped with you eventually died? The question caught Kira off guard. Our physiology was not suited to life away from Centuria's specific conditions. A convenient explanation. Brexel's voice remained pleasant, but something in it made Kira's skin prickle with warning. Tell me, Chief Vaxlori, what do you know about the Deathworld containment protocol? Kira's breath caught in her throat, but she kept her face still. Nothing, Commander. It's not a term I'm familiar with. Brexel studied her for a long moment. No? Interesting. Because my sources indicate that someone has been accessing classified files about that very subject. Files that also contain information about Centauria. I wouldn't know anything about that, Kira said carefully. Of course not. Brexel smiled thinly. Just as you wouldn't know about a certain Dr. Leo Garcia, whose laboratory access has been suspiciously active during off hours. Kira felt cold fear now. He knew. Somehow he knew about their plan. Commander, I'm not sure what. Brexel held up a slender hand. No need to explain, Chief Vaxlori. I'm not here to accuse. Merely to inform. He leaned closer. The probe launch scheduled for tomorrow has been moved up. It leaves in 2 hours. And the launch bay is now under my direct supervision. Their plan was falling apart before it could even begin. Kira struggled to keep her expression neutral. Again, Commander, I'm not sure why you're telling me this. Consider it a professional courtesy, Brexel said, one security officer to another. Sometimes, curiosity leads to places we weren't meant to go. It would be unfortunate if your exemplary record were tarnished by misplaced loyalty. With a slight nod, Brexel turned and walked away, leaving Kira at the window, her mind racing. She needed to warn Ella and Dr. Garcia immediately. She waited until Brexel was out of sight, then tapped her communicator. Station. Locate Diplomat Martinez. Diplomat Martinez is in Docking Bay 12, the automated voice replied. Docking Bay 12, where the supply shuttles arrived. Why would Ella be there? Kira headed for the nearest lift, trying not to move too quickly or appear concerned. The lift doors opened on docking level, and Kira stepped out to find chaos. Alarms were blaring, and security officers were rushing toward Bay 12. What's happening? She asked, stopping a passing officer. Unauthorized launch in progress, the officer said breathlessly. Human shuttle. Broke departure protocols. Commander Brexel has ordered it stopped. Kira's heart sank. Ella and Dr. Garcia must have tried to launch their probe early, realizing the scheduled launch had been changed. But how had they gotten a shuttle? She ran toward Bay 12, her mind working quickly. If they were caught, everything would be lost. Not just the chance to learn about Centauria, but possibly their freedom or lives. The Confederacy did not treat those who accessed classified information kindly. As she ran, Kira made a decision. For 20 years, she had been the perfect officer, the model of conformity and obedience. She had accepted what she was told about her world, her people, and her place in the galaxy. No more. Kira reached Docking Bay 12 to find security personnel surrounding a small shuttle. Commander Brexel stood at the front, speaking into a communicator. This is your final warning. Power down and exit the vessel immediately. Kira could see through the shuttle's viewport. Ella was at the controls, with Dr. Garcia beside her. Their faces were determined as they continued pre-launch procedures. What are they doing? Asked Officer Webb, who had just arrived beside Kira. They're trying to leave, Kira said simply. Then she made her decision. And I'm going to help them. Before Webb could respond, Kira stepped forward, moving quickly toward Brexel. Commander, she called. Let me speak to them. They know me. They'll listen. Brexel turned, his golden eyes narrowing. Chief Vaxlori, how convenient that you've arrived. His voice was cold now. All pretense dropped. Perhaps you can explain why your human friends are stealing a shuttle and an experimental probe. I don't know, Kira lied, but I can find out. Brexel studied her for a moment, then nodded. Very well. You have 2 minutes to convince them to surrender. After that, we disable the shuttle by force. Kira approached the shuttle, making sure she was visible through the viewport. Ella saw her and hit the communication panel. Kira. Brexel moved up the probe launch. We had to act now. I know, Kira said. Everyone is watching. What's your plan? The shuttle is loaded with Garcia's probe, Ella explained quickly. We need to get it to the Zentarian system. Once there, it can scan the planet and transmit data back. You'll never make it past the station's defense systems, Kira said. Dr. Garcia leaned into view. We don't need to. The shuttle's computer is programmed to execute the mission. We just need to launch it. Kira understood now. They weren't trying to escape. They were trying to launch the probe. Brexel is going to disable the shuttle in less than 2 minutes, she warned. We need 3 minutes to complete the launch sequence, Ella said, her expression grim. Kira made her decision. Open the hatch. I'm coming in. What? Kira. No. Do it now, Kira insisted. The hatch slid open, and Kira stepped inside, sealing it behind her. She moved to the control panel beside Ella. Chief Vaxlori, Brexel's voice came through the comm system. Exit the shuttle immediately. I can't do that, Commander, Kira replied. I need to know the truth. She turned to Ella. Complete the launch sequence. I'll buy you time. Kira moved to the shuttle's rear compartment where Dr. Garcia's probe was secured. It was smaller than she had expected, about the size of her torso. "What are you doing?" Dr. Garcia asked, following her. "Is this the probe? Will it work if launched from outside the shuttle?" "Yes, it's designed to operate independently, but—" "Good. Keep working on the launch sequence as a distraction." Kira unsecured the probe and lifted it. Even with her Zentarian strength, it was heavy. She moved to the emergency airlock at the rear of the shuttle. Outside, she could hear Brexel ordering defense systems to target the shuttle's engines. They were out of time. "Ella," Kira called. "When I say now, open the rear airlock." "Kira, you can't go out there." Ella protested. "I can survive vacuum longer than you. My body is built for it." Kira secured the probe to her body with cargo straps. "I can launch it manually." Ella looked at her with understanding and respect. "Deathworlder solution," she said with a small smile. "Now," Kira commanded. The airlock opened. The vacuum of space pulled at them, but the shuttle's internal systems quickly compensated. Kira stepped into the airlock, the probe strapped to her chest. "Find me when you get the data," she said to Ella. Then the outer door opened, and Kira was pulled into space. The cold emptiness surrounded her. Kira held her breath, feeling her skin tighten as the moisture on its surface crystallized. She had 12 minutes before she would lose consciousness. Using the small maneuvering jets on the probe, Kira pushed away from the station. Once clear, she activated the probe's launch sequence. It rumbled against her chest. Then its engines fired fully. Kira released it, watching as it shot away toward the coordinates of Zentaria. Her vision was starting to dim when strong arms grabbed her. Through her fading sight, she saw Ella in a spacesuit, tethered to the shuttle. The human pulled her back toward the airlock. Inside the shuttle, warmth and air returned. Kira gasped, filling her lungs. "Did it launch?" she asked as soon as she could speak. "Yes," Dr. Garcia confirmed. "It's away and on course." Security forces were cutting through the shuttle's hatch. They had only moments before capture. "What happens now?" Kira asked. "Now we face the consequences," Ella said. "But we sent the probe. In 6 days, it will reach Zentaria. And we'll know the truth," Kira said. The hatch gave way. Commander Brexel entered, flanked by security officers. "You will all face charges of highest treason," he said coldly. "Perhaps," said a new voice. An older human male entered the shuttle behind Brexel. Kira recognized him. Director Sam Holloway, the head of Earth's diplomatic mission. "But first," Holloway continued, "we should discuss why the Confederacy has been hiding the existence of a quarantined world from its own citizens." Brexel's face showed shock for the first time. "This is not your concern, Director." "I think it is," Holloway said calmly, "especially since we've just received the first transmissions from Dr. Garcia's probe. It seems Zentaria is very much intact and inhabited." Kira's heart skipped a beat. "My people are alive," Holloway confirmed. "And now the Confederacy has some explaining to do." Kira looked at Ella, who smiled back with the fierce pride of a fellow Deathworlder. They had found the truth. She was not alone. And now, everything would change.